Okay, well, welcome to episode 216 today of Level Up. 60 minutes, of course, of live Q&A where your questions really do drive the show. We've got all kinds of little gremlins today that we're working through in terms of the technology. But if you're watching us on YouTube, well done. You've made the connection, okay? And if you're on LinkedIn, please do, of course, introduce yourself and let us know the city, your name and the city from where you're joining. Ella is over in the social chat and she would be delighted to hear from you. And then, of course, she's going to share some links so that you can vote up the questions that you would most like answered by the panel. And, of course, for you to be able to add your own as well. If your question is selected, then your name will appear in the credits at the end of the show. So do get all of those in early and stay with us to see that happening. We are all leaders. Only the situation changes. We lead at home, we lead in our friendship groups, we lead in our hobbies, we lead at work. And of course, some of us, actually, our full-time role is focused on leadership. So what in particular is it that we need to develop in terms of digital leaders or leaders in the digital age? And how do we apply that thinking to our professional lives? Helping us out today are a brilliant panel. So let's jump straight in and meet them all. Jasbir Kooner is the Director of Cybersecurity over at Englobe Corporation, where she's heading up their journey into artificial intelligence. An award-winning leader, she is a key contributor to the business relationship management community worldwide. Welcome back to Level Up, Jasbir. Lovely to see you.
Thank you so much. And Nick, it's great to be here with you all.
Thank you. Adrian Pyne rejoins today. He's, of course, the author of Agile Beyond IT, a really good book. Can't recommend it enough, actually. And he leads his own consulting business. He keeps claiming that he's on the journey towards retirement, but I just see somebody who's busy and present in the current moment. So he's a regular contributor, of course, to the profession. He's a fellow of the Association of Project Management, amongst many other accolades, and a regular contributor on Level Up. Welcome back, Adrian.
Thank you very much indeed, Nick. I'm blushing hugely here, but thanks for that. And great once again to be on a good, diverse international panel, which is one of the gigantic strengths of Level Up. So yeah, delighted to be here.
It really genuinely is. And it's so lovely that we have such a diverse audience around the world joining us from pretty much every continent. Although, and I know it's summertime at the moment, so perhaps they're all outside. I am looking for somebody to dial in and join us from the Antarctic Survey Post Office on Antarctica. That would be brilliant, wouldn't it? So if you know anybody who works there, do invite them to join on a Friday. That would be great. Mart Rovers joins us again today. He is president of INTERPROM, and his professional life really focuses these days on leadership coaching. So I'm really looking forward to hearing Mart's thoughts today. He has a deep domain experience in technology, of course, and he helps organizations adopt that technology and develop it into leading practice. So welcome back, Mart.
Nick, thanks so much for your wonderful introduction, and thank you for having me again. And I'll call my buddy on the South Pole to join in a moment.
Thank you very much.
I want to start with a quote that digital transformation starts with leadership. It's what Dwayne Malenga Isaac Jr. once said, and he stated, leaders have a choice to lead the transformation or be led by it, disrupt or wait to be disrupted.
Mm-hmm. It's a good point, isn't it? Do you lead something or do you let yourself be led by events? Really good point. Thank you very much indeed, Mart. We'll consider that. Dierk Söllner joins us. He is, of course, a solopreneur, is probably the best way to describe him, with an enviable blue chip client base. A long-standing professional business coach. He draws upon his domain experience in IT, and he's also the host of the popular German podcast. I'm going to make a complete hash of this. Auf die Ohren und ins Hirn, which I think, well, you can translate it for us far better, Dierk, than I'm able to, but something to do with listening and your mind and developing your mind, perhaps. I'm not sure.
Yes.
Hello, Nick. Hello, APMG community. Again, I'm delighted to be here and for the first time in this still young year. And this is a great topic. And I think there are great questions waiting for us. So let's just get started. But first of all, this is, and you can translate it. Auf die Ohren means on your ears, right into your brain. So hear it, think about it, get it. So that's what the podcast wants to provide.
Perfect. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Dierk. Appreciate it. Falko Werner joins. He's the co-founder of Vempio, and his focus is on helping teams double their effectiveness in a matter of weeks instead of months. A podcast host also in his own right, he champions getting the very best out of individuals through inspiration and taking a structured coaching approach. Welcome back to Level Up, Falko. Lovely to see you.
Oh, nice to be here again. Even though I have some technical issues today, so you might not necessarily be able to see me today, but hopefully it's good to hear me anyway. I love to be here and join this great panel on the topic of digital leadership. So just let's jump into it.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Now, completing our on-screen team today is our question master. It's Shanice Mitchell-Cox, and she's joining us from sunny South Wales here in the UK. So welcome, Shanice. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Nick. I'm delighted to be here today. It's the first episode that I've been on in 2024. So yeah, it's a great one as usual.
Absolutely. Very good indeed. I can see lots of people joining online. So fantastic. Thank you for introducing yourself. If you've not done so already, then do say hello in the chat. And on that note, I think let's press on. Shanice, if we can, we'll take our first question to the panel.
Of course. Thanks, Nick. We've got a question from Iona. Please define what the digital leader is.
It's a really great question to start the show off with. Dierk, why don't you help us out here? What is a digital leader?
So I think we should start with what's a leader, and that's what you said in the introduction. Everyone is a leader, but I think really good leaders are leaders where a person follow by themselves. So you don't need any organizational structure or something like that. So, and the digital leader has get the challenges from digitalization we have. And so he's facing other problems, other issues. And so that makes his leadership a little bit more extraordinary. So leadership is to deal with digital problems and digital issues.
Thank you very much indeed. I love that concept of you can't be a leader if you don't have any followers. That's called being an explorer. Okay, so there we go. Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Mart and then Adrian.
To me, a digital leader is somebody who can drive a culture of innovation. I think that's a very critical component. What comes with that, cultural change is, of course, resistance, how to deal with that. In other words, innovation also means continuous improvement. So a culture of continuous improvement. So those come to mind as far as what is a digital leader, what is different from a leader to a digital leader.
Thank you very much indeed. Leading that change, making sure that things are happening, and really kind of thinking beyond our current comfort zone. They're all great attributes, aren't they? Thank you, Mart. And Adrian, your thoughts on this?
Building on certainly what Mart is just saying, I'm glad he mentioned the cultural aspect. For me, one of the things a digital leader does is, as well as being able, depending on whatever level they're operating at in an organization, they're able to see the uses and applications of digitalization, but also recognizing that it's not an IT thing or just an IT thing, but it's actually something that impacts the way in which people behave in the organization, the way it's organized. In fact, very often the complete business model is changing. There was an MIT Sloan paper in 2021 which described this very, very well and said, hey, folks, this is not, digitalization, and more recently, of course, AI. It's not an IT initiative. It's actually about changing the business and bottom line.
It's quite interesting, isn't it, how the tables have turned over years as the level of IT literacy has grown amongst individual contributors in an organization. So things, I think, are less IT-led and more IT-enabled. They're business-led, IT-enabled. And this is an important difference in language, an important difference in approach. And we'll explore more about that, I think. So thank you, panel. What a great question to start the top of the show off with, defining digital leadership. Let's jump over into the producers of the show, of course, which is the audience, everybody online. Ricardo Santos joins us. Lovely to have you online today, Ricardo. Thank you for joining us from Southern Ireland, from Dublin. Over there. Ricardo is, of course, a regular contributor on Level Up as a panelist and also as a producer in the audience. Zolani joins and from the Gauteng province in South Africa. So thank you very much indeed. Great to have you as part of the community today. Do get your questions in early so that we can get them to the panel. And Arlene joins all the way from Barbados. I'm not remotely jealous whatsoever of anybody who's in your part of the world at the moment, as I am perishing, I think is the right word in the UK. If you're not fully following that because English is not your first language, imagine cold and then a little bit more and then a bit more after that, and you're close to it. So fantastic. Thank you very much indeed, Arlene, for joining. And a regular contributor to the Level Up community around the world is Boleslaw. He's joining us from Warsaw, and he's probably thinking, look, it can't be cold in the UK. It's not properly cold. Warsaw's colder. All right. So there's everything to play for, I suppose, when it comes to weather. What is warm to one person is too hot for another, and what is cold to one is medium to somebody else. Very good. Thank you very much indeed to our producers online. Shanice, on that note, after welcoming folks, let's take our next question to the panel, please.
Of course, thanks, Nick. So we've got a question from Adrian. What, if anything, is different about digital leadership?
Okay, excellent. Jasbir, why don't you start us off with this?
Thank you, Nick. I think for myself, I would say really understanding what is the digital landscape. We have a digital world that has its own opportunities as well as its challenges. So that's where leadership, I always view leadership as the foundation, where everybody's a leader, as I believe Dierk had stated prior, right? And it's that extra level. So when you're looking at digital, you're looking at the technical aspect and now really understanding from your company, what does digital mean? What does tech mean, right? And then really starting to define what are these challenges, what are these opportunities, and then moving towards that.
Yeah, I think that you're absolutely right, because often it can mean a very different way of thinking. In the early days of digitalization, you might consider taking an analog process and converting it into a digital process. But actually, digital leadership may bring different thoughts entirely because you're working in a digital ecosystem. There might be opportunities that you could never achieve in the analog world. So you're absolutely right. Thank you, Jasbir. Some great thinking there. Mart, your thoughts, please, and then we'll go to Adrian.
This question builds on the previous one. So it's along the same lines as far as getting that culture of innovation going that I want to emphasize on. But it's that cultural aspect as far as shifting the whole business model. For example, when Amazon started and they were selling books, they didn't own a book. Or when COVID hit and we all had to work from home, all of a sudden that whole business model had to change. So for me, a digital leader is somebody who can guide us through those transformations. Of course, stimulating innovation and creativity, and of course, guiding the organizations through the changes, the transformations, and the potential resilience that needs to be built in. In these days, the fast pace of change the speed of change, the number of changes, it won't slow down anytime soon. It's almost as in we're asking any leader to become a digital leader.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much indeed. Falko, I know that you've been waiting to contribute. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I see in the age of digital products. So sometimes products that don't exist in the physical world at all, like streaming providers, like also combined products with a very hard part of the value creation in the digital part, like cars in the past were there with motors and seats and driving people. And so far, I understand that more than 50% of the value creation of a vehicle right now is on the software part. So bringing those things together, creating products that deliver value from the end, from the producer to the end user, in a fast way, innovative way, where we come back to the ideas of what Matt and Adrian mentioned in the definition, increasing the speed of those value creation with digital products. And that's where we are, and what makes it important to lead the organizations producing this value into that direction, to incorporate and bring all the people that are inside the organization and align them towards value creation, and reducing everything else in the process, including what the lean people call waste. So eliminating all the areas where you have lots of discussions internally that don't support creating value for the end customer, for the user of your product.
Thank you very much indeed. I think you referenced the automotive industry there and the percentage of value which is being delivered through software. And I think it was recently that there was, technically, it was a recall that Tesla needed to do to make some changes to its autopilot, the way in which it worked, and for the US market, for the regulator there. But of course, there was no recall. It was all done over the air. You could take your Tesla car in, of course, and plug it in and have it done by your Tesla dealer, but actually you could just let it update itself. And so fascinating, really. And we might come back to the automotive sector a little later. Adrian, you put this question to the panel. Your thoughts on this?
Yes, just a bit of picking up. Falko talked about bringing people together, and Mart also talked about transformation. And for me, one of the things digital leader does, because they're usually, if they're at the top of the organization, going to be people from a certain operational background, not a change background, they need to be able to realize that the transformation to digitalization, and indeed in using AI, is a major thing, and is not going to be done piecemeal, and needs to be done in a highly structured way. And the mechanism for that is through projects and programs, almost always. And people at the top of the organization mostly are not going to have that kind of background. So the leaders need to understand what they know and where they need to go and ask for help to get the right people in to help with that transformation journey.
Yeah. Thank you very much indeed. It's such an important thing to be, good leaders also are facilitators, aren't they? They're enablers of others, and they're lifting everybody up. So it's a great thing to be able to do, if you're at the leading edge of an emergent concept, an emergent idea, an emergent technology, sharing that knowledge generously with others and helping them embrace it and think it through is the right thing to do, rather than holding on to that in some sort of, myopic view that will somehow set you apart, for longer. So absolutely right. Thank you very much indeed, Adrian. Let's move on, Shanice, if we can, and we'll take our next question.
Thanks, Nick. So we've got a question from Ernie in Florida. Establishing a culture of creativity is what a digital leader is supposed to do. Does the panel have any helpful tips to establish such culture?
Well, it's quite interesting, this, isn't it? Because, digital creativity, we've had the last year, 2023, was really focused on large language models and new generative AI and so on and so on. You started to see creativity coming out of technology in very visualized forms over the last year or so. Dierk, why don't you start us off on this one, and then we'll hear from Jasbir.
I would like to connect to what Adrian said for the last question, and I think one tip for the start is to be open for feedback, ask question, realize that you are not the only one who owns knowledge and who knows the way. So be open and be a leader in the digital world. So means ask your team, ask the guys who are around you, and be open for feedback.
Thank you. Okay, appreciate it. And Jasbir, your thoughts, and then we'll hear from Mart.
For myself, I would say as leaders, a lot of times we expect ourselves, as well as we are viewed as individuals that know everything. And, we know how to do it all type of thing. When you're playing around in tech, everything is really new. There is very few stuff you can take from history because tech is evolving so fast, right? So the one thing I would say as leaders, in order to really develop this culture, is you have to be okay with experimenting, and you have to be very, very, comfortable with risk-taking. And when you're experimenting and risk-taking, failure is going to happen. And I find in the tech world, we deal with failure a lot more than I would say other departments within a business. So it's okay to fail. It's okay to learn from your failure, and then lessons learned, and let's move on. So I would say for a digital leader, really make sure that that's a part of your culture, because if you don't put that as a part of your culture, everyone's going to be very scared to be creative and innovative, and the culture will never really take off.
It's beautifully put. Thank you, Jasbir, because, having the courage to experiment, having the willingness to fail, fail fast is a phrase that you'll hear some people kind of saying, just try things out. If it works, it's great, put some more in and some more in and some more in, but don't worry, don't hold back, do try these things out and work with your team to find a way to be able to pilot or experiment in some fashion or another. Such an important element. Thank you, Jasbir. Mart, your thoughts, please.
Build on Jasbir's answer. Study was done actually about how little companies actually tap into people's creative mindsets. And organizations that picked up on the results of that study gave people more time to be creative, gave them the space, the means. In other words, once they allowed them to be more creative, the extreme examples are that today companies exist. All they offer are products and services that came from those leaders that gave people the time and space to be creative, and people came up with new products and services, and that's all they sell today. Of course, that's an extreme example, but it's also about creating that environment to be creative. People who work for an organization, a lot of them care about their career, their job, their organization, and they have ideas. And if we don't tap into that or benefit from or take advantage from all those ideas that surface, then again, we're not being a digital leader in essence.
I completely agree. I just want to reference Solani's comment, if I may, Tiddy, if we can flip back to that. Thank you very much. In a culture of creativity, it becomes easy when a leader has been advancing or advocating, championing innovative thinking. So a lot of alignment actually in our thinking. So thank you, Solani. That's really great to have you contributing in the chat, and we appreciate it. Falko, your thoughts on this about the culture of creativity?
Yeah, I think from a cultural perspective, you need to be aware that organizations have to have a fearless environment. There is a nice book that Amy Edmondson also talks about lots of aspects of very well organized organizations and organizations that failed on the cultural aspect. And the main foundation is to have an organization where everyone can contribute, also problematic ideas and issues, and don't have any repercussions to fear. So openness and transparency are the base for such an organization, and then building upon this, creating values for everyone, and bringing the behavior of everyone into alignment among those values. And a leader for that organization is the one creating the structure for this cultural shift to take place. So thinking about organizing the portfolio of various streams or products, organizing the ways of working, like rules, combining free time for experimentation. Like I think we were setting up like 4 days a week. You work on the projects that you are assigned to, and you have like 20% of your work week to invest into your own products that could be new ideas for the organization, but could also be something charitable, some supporting something else completely different than the organization itself, and bringing in new ideas through that way. And big products, for example, in Google, that based on this idea was the Google Mail tool, for example, where some people started off with their idea of how they would like to have something work, and built a very big product on that way of working. That's how I see this come into a big organization.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Letting people express their creativity and their thinking, outside of work, and then bringing back their experiences. It's such a positive thing to be able to do, and embracing different technologies in different industries, and seeing how you can optimize your service delivery, or your product development, or your marketing, or your supply chain based on the learnings from other people. It's a fantastic thing to do. If you're looking for some inspiration about how you can create more creativity in your organization, a little book, it's lovely to read. It's by a gentleman called Sir Ken Robinson. He's a UK professor. Unfortunately, he died a few years ago, but he's really worthwhile reading, and you can also find him on the TED platform as well. He did a series of TED Talks actually about creativity. And the book that I would recommend is called Out of Our Minds, as you can see the QR code on the screen. So do look that one up. It's super useful. All right, very good. I can see we've got lots of activity in the chat today from everybody. We've got a very active audience today, which is great. Let's move on, Shanice, if we can, and we'll take our next question for the panel.
Thanks so much, Nick. We do have a live question from Ricardo. He had a shout out earlier. Hi, Ricardo. What is the role of leaders in making sure that professionals use AI as a productivity resource?
Oh, it's a great point, isn't it? Okay. What's the role of leaders then? Adrian, why don't you start us off on this, and then we'll hear from Mart.
This is a great question, especially following up from both the last question and the discussion around it, because if we're going to be looking at doing any form of digitalization, the embracing of AI, I think we've already well established that it's something that's going to change the organization culture, the way in which an organization works. And just to be clear on that, that's not the same as behavior. A lot of people think, behavior is what organization culture is. It's not. Behavior is the expression of organization culture. It's kind of the end product, but it's not what the culture is. Organization culture comes from the entirety in which an organization works. So it starts from sort of the strategy. In fact, there's like them or love them. McKinsey have got a great what they call their 5 dimensions of operations model, which is strategy, structure, people, process, and technology. And that's what organization culture is. It comprises all of those aspects working together and impacting people together. So if you're a leader and you're wanting to make sure that professionals in your organization can use AI as a productivity resource, you have to create the culture in which that can occur, which is a point that at least a couple of people made in relation to the last question. And it's about transitioning the organization culture to enable those behaviors.
It's certainly true. I think one element of that for me is to embrace democratization of ideas. In that, you can create the conditions as the leader, but you also need to be willing to live with the outcome. And the outcome may mean that new leaders begin to evolve out of different cohorts. And the traditional hierarchical model of organizational design may not always reflect where the innovation and thought leadership is actually emerging from. So just kind of bear that in mind. I can see a few colleagues kind of smiling here on the panel. Thank you, Adrian. Mart, your thoughts, please. Then we'll go to Dierk.
Adrian mentioned the word strategy, and that was actually my answer to this question, as in, what is your digital strategy as an organization? For years as a leadership coach, I've been challenging leaders, as in, so do you have a digital strategy? And it's as in, yeah, sure, we need it, but then nothing happens. And just, after 2023, when AI exploded, do you have an AI strategy? Same question there. 60-70%. I'm not sure if that's the right number, but it's a number I saw somewhere, as in the number of organizations scrambling to now catch up with AI, as in after all these years, still nothing, as far as an AI strategy.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? That it was like the first answer to the very first question. You can either lead it or you can be led by events, if you like. Your thoughts, and then we'll hear from Falko.
Just a short addition to Mart and Adrian, because I think it's a little bit more a practical tip. So I think you should provide time. You should provide time and space, and I think you should give them tasks. You should give them projects. You should give them tasks to solve. You should not send them to trainings just for personal development. So give them tasks, give them concrete tasks, and discuss this. You talk about democratization, and that's it. Don't send the people into their bureaus for themselves. Build groups, build projects, help them to work together and to learn together what AI means.
Learning together, exploring together. Thinking about the implications as well, and about where is all of this data going, and how is it being manipulated, and so on. Thank you very much indeed. And Falko, final thoughts, please.
All right. Yeah, I think AI, the importance is the key. You need to understand that it's the importance for a big organization to bring this productivity factor into operation. So that's kind of like the steam machine or the factory production systems for cars on the line into the digital and knowledge worker area to increase productivity of workers. And if you have the motivation behind it, then you can bring the strategy in place, like Mart and Dierk dove a little bit deeper into, with making it operational, bringing it into action, and making sure that you don't have any blockers in the way of people in the knowledge worker area, like IT security and data protection, who usually steer people away from new tools that are freely available on the internet and let them use it. And then there is also the training part. Make the knowledge workers who can make value out of using AI tools, how to do it and use it safely. those together, then you have a good way of getting an AI strategy into action.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Falko. So very good. Let's just kind of look out online. Ricardo, thank you very much indeed for your feedback on the question that you put to the panel. Great to hear from you. If you are in the audience and you want to put a question to the panel, this is pretty much the last shout out for you to do that. So do get your question in now. Otherwise, you may find that we run out of time in the coming minutes. All right, very good. Shanice, on that note, let's press on. Let's take our next question, please.
Thanks, Nick. We've got another question from Ernie in Florida. Gartner once mentioned that a digital leader invents, but also copies. How can one lead when copying? This seems inconsistent.
Now, we're an exam institute, so copying for us can not always be a positive thing. Whereas replicating and emulating and all of these sorts of things, most probably are in a leadership context. Jasbir, why don't you start our thinking, then we'll hear from Dierk.
Absolutely love this question when I saw it. So thank you so much, Ernie, for asking that question. I was actually reading an article recently and they were talking about creativity. And a lot of times we want to create something new, right? So we're always looking at what they call big creativity. And they said a lot of big creativity comes only once in a while, right? And it's small creativity that actually happens all the time. And small creativity is usually based on copying. So I thought it was so intriguing. I just read this like last week and it was like an aha moment because I'm like, you can copy what somebody else does, but then you'll have to modify it and change it based on your organization, the maturity of your company. And that's where it really starts, you start to invent new stuff, right? So even though the foundation is copied, because you've made it unique to what your organization needs or your department, that's where you started to invent. And that's where I find it's going to take a life of its own and it's going to become something that's very unique. So that's my thought process on that. Nick, how about what's your feedback?
I think that you're right. There's a very beautiful Renaissance sculpture, and I can't remember who the artist was who created it. But colloquially, it's called an allegory of faith, and it's a head and shoulders sculpture, and it's of a lady who is veiled. And the concept in religious art, in Christian religious art, was to try and get across that even if you can't see clearly, that you can have faith and commitment to something. And I think that this idea of being able to take an idea from one world, even if it's Renaissance art, and thinking about how do we create faith and trust in a digital service, that's a worked example of exactly what you're talking about. You can go and find inspiration from one domain, sometimes from a competitor even, sometimes quite frankly, and you can reinvent it and repurpose it. Repurposing perhaps is a good phrase, good word to be able to think about considering as part of your digital leadership strategy, or asking the question, why can't we be more like this customer experience, this way of collaborating with our value chain, these kinds of things. Excellent. Thank you very much indeed, Jasbir. Dierk, your thoughts, and then we'll go to Falko.
I would like Ernie would say, Ernie, good question, and Nick and Jasbir, good answers. Just a little more point of that, my 2 cents. I think if you replace copy by learn, it would be okay. So if he get everything from anything from the outside and put it into his thinking, in this way of working and talking and so on, would be okay. So just replace copy by learn and would be okay.
Thank you very much indeed. I can see Ella as well. She's faster on Google than I am. So if you're following in the social chat, she's actually got the real originator of the piece of art that I was referring to. Thank you. Learn from the masters is a great phrase, isn't it? Thank you very much indeed, Dierk. Falko, your thoughts, and then we'll go to Adrian.
I would like to add on what we already heard by bringing the idea that deciding what to copy is where you lead the new thing. You can copy everything, the whole world, but if you want to start with copying the whole world and into your products, into your strategy, then you will never start implementing something new. And that's where you need to know the user, the end user, the customer, and decide which idea is worth copying into your product and then bringing it together. And I think that's something what Steve Jobs did with the iPod and iPhone series, when he copied a lot of good ideas into a device and then at the end made it really good by rethinking about it and iterating and improving all the copied things into the customer valued product in the end. So it's not only like Ford who said you need to know the customer and tell him what he needs, and not just listen to customers who say we want faster horses, but to think about what you can provide to the customer, for example, by creating cars, to make the value for the customer.
Thank you very much indeed. You've jumped me back in time there to the whole kind of Apple versus Android. There was actually quite a lot of time in court, if I remember rightly, between all those. Anyway, let's move on. Thank you very much. We get the gist. Thank you, Falko. Adrian, final thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think the one word that hasn't been talked about here is adapting. And I think it's not, I agree completely with the other panel members. I don't think it is about just copying. I think it's adapting with some intelligence, because just blindly copying can be disastrously. I can think of, kind of my own kind of field of agility at the moment. And I can't remember how many times I've had to comment when people have said, let's take Scrum, an agile software development approach, and use it for project management. Let's just copy it from software development and drop it into project management. And it's a disaster. It's a complete disaster. It's not designed for it. So it's no good just copying something and then just using it for something else. You really have to apply some intelligence and say, well, actually, are there some lessons from agility that we can take into the sphere of project management or engineering or marketing or finance or whatever, or construction or whatever? So adapting with some intelligence.
Thank you very much indeed. It's so important, isn't it? Otherwise you end up in an evolutionary cul-de-sac. And we've seen some examples of creatures from the past that have ended up in that way. So there we go. Thank you very much indeed, Adrian. Some great answers, panel, to today. It's been a very wide-ranging conversation. Shanice, I think we've got time to squeeze maybe one or two more questions in if we hurry.
Wonderful. Thanks, Nick. We've got another question from Adrian. Should digital leadership be ethical?
So it's a really short question, and I'm hoping that we're going to get a fairly short answer to it. Dierk, should digital leaders or leadership be ethical?
I thought about how would it be if I said no, because everyone expects me and all the other guys at the panel to say yes, and I have no reason to say no. So my answer is yes.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm relieved about that, actually, in a way. Dierk, I do apologize. Sorry, Falko, your thoughts, and then we'll go back to Adrian.
Yes, it should be ethical. So I would build on Dierk's answer, and I have a good resource. There is a book about adaptive ethics in digital leadership to think about. Adaptive ethics, it's a great author. He did a lot of good books already in the past, I think. And he developed this idea of adaptive ethics to be able to adapt to the digital world and not build on all the ethical frameworks that already existed in the past, but create a new ethics understanding. And that's quite helpful if you think about ethical leadership or ethics in leadership position.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think in my mind, there are ethics transcend time. they're long-lasting, they're principles, if you like, and the nomenclature we may use in any given era may change, the words may change, the packaging may change, but the principle is pretty long-lasting. Thank you. Mart has just jumped in with a thought, and then we'll come to you last, Adrian. So Mart next, please.
Just quickly, so the answer, absolutely yes. I think if you, as a leader, want to take your organization to, the new digital approach, the new era, then meet the organization where they're at. Don't start something that's so disruptive that doesn't help your people, doesn't help your bottom line. You might as well start a whole new organization somewhere else. So in other words, there's that definitely that needs to be taken into account.
Thank you very much. Adrian, you posed a question.
Yeah, we've all, of course, agreed that the answer quite simply is yes. Would that it was that simple. I raised it because a very major news story in the UK at the moment is about unethical behavior around a major post office, UK post office IT system that led to several hundred people being criminalized when it was an IT issue and not their theft. And it's taken 20 years for that to surface. And we've talked a great deal about culture around digitalization. So I think, if you're going to be ethical, that has to be part of the culture that you are creating in using technology, digital, and especially moving into AI, which has got to serve people, not the other way around.
Indeed. Yeah, thank you very much indeed. And really interesting if you want to follow it and see how uncomfortable living with the results of unethical behavior is, then you can find the Horizon IT inquiry, post office IT inquiry on YouTube, has its own channel, and you can watch it day by day. It's fascinating watching experience. Okay, very good. Let's move on then. Shanice, I think we've got time for one last question.
Thanks, Nick. We do have a live question from Werner Barty. In the context of digital leadership, what certification would be appropriate for a change management practitioner, and how well is this certification regarded in the industry?
Okay, well, it's a very interesting question because in the context of the digital age, I'll say a couple of things about managing change. Okay, first of all, it's very human-centric type model. And also, of course, best practice tends to echo standards and communities that have been building their knowledge over time. So it's always a little bit behind the very latest thinking and the leading edge thinking, if you like. But I would suggest that there's a couple for you to consider. The Change Management Institute and APMG work on a qualification called, funnily enough, Change Management. It's APMG Change Management. So do look that one up. It has various levels to it, and it can give you a knowledge foundation. It can also give you the opportunity to be able to apply that knowledge and crystallize your aptitude to do something into a practitioner qualification as well. And at this moment, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold on to my thoughts and hand over to Adrian next for his thoughts, and then we'll go from Adrian to Mart.
Yeah, I'm just going to do a bit of a shout out for business agility because it occurred to me some time ago that digitalization and moving towards business agility have exactly the same goals, and indeed an awful lot of the same outcomes. So I would also suggest people look at certifications around business agility because that should help as well.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Adrian. It's a really good thinking there. Mart, your thoughts, and then Falko.
My recommendation would be to consider the design thinking training courses that focus on the design thinking method, breaking down problems and coming up with ideas and a very structured approach to allow for that ideation to happen with solutions that fit the organization, fit the market, and so on. So design thinking. That's my recommendation.
Thank you very much indeed. Excellent thoughts. Falko?
Yeah, bringing those things together, the business agility thoughts and the design thinking. I think the vacuum cleaner of frameworks, the SAFe framework, could be a good place to at least combine all those things and have something that's widely adopted in the lots of industries at least. Next to that, I would also recommend the DASA DevOps Leader, which is a leadership training that is fairly hands-on, planned to have 9 weeks of learning on your own, in addition to communication and learning with the group of other leaders and building their own transformation journey for their organization, learning from each other, with each other, and creating a transformation.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Falko. Great job, everybody. Great job, panel. Really nice to get everybody's thinking on that. Thank you, Shanice, as well. We're going to move into closing remarks now for the show, if we can. So we'll come round the panel. Dierk, if I may, I'll come to you first. Your thoughts on today's episode?
Once again, as I always tell on this panel, thank you for having me as a guest here. I hope I could add some value for the audience, and I have learned something as well as the last time. Thank you.
It's a great learning experience for us all, isn't it? It's fantastic. I really look forward, to these sessions. So thank you very much indeed, Dierk. Appreciate it. Jasbir, your closing remarks, please, and then we'll go to Falko.
It was such a great panel to be a part of. I remember when I chose it last year, I was like so excited for it, and time flies, and here we are. And like Dierk said, I also took down notes, and I have a couple new books on my reading list. Thank you so much.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. January is in the Northern Hemisphere. January, February, great months actually to get more reading done, aren't they, as the days are a little shorter and so on. Falko and then Mart.
Yeah, in terms of reading, I really like reading audiobooks. So from that perspective.
Very good. Very good.
And yeah, we mentioned quite a few. I think IT Revolution Press brought also a good one into the leadership realm, which is Wiring the Winning Organization. Great book to link all of those IT and business related topics into a consistent understanding and framework for bringing an organization to the next level. That's probably something I would recommend for everyone who's interested in digital leadership.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Mart and then Adrian.
Shanice, you picked some great questions for us, allowing us to thrive in many different areas. It's been a true pleasure to be part of such a esteemed panel. So thank you so much. I'd like to mention a quote from Rodriguez Lobos, who once said, "A critical path for any digital transformation is digital leadership and culture. It's not technology."
Excellently put. Thank you very much indeed, Mart. Adrian and then Shanice.
Which beautifully steals my thunder, because I was going to say that two things. First of all, I really hate it when the panel all just end up agreeing with each other. It's very annoying. But secondly, a key thing that came out of this fantastic panel that's consistent is that we're not talking about digitalization as just a technology thing. That the whole people, the organization culture dimensions here is absolutely fundamental to be able to gain value, which at the end of the day is why it's being done, in order to gain value from digitalization and the use of AI. So thank you, panel.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. And Shanice, your reflections on today.
It's been a great show, and I feel that I've personally taken so much from all of you. So thank you so much for sharing your incredible insights, and I can't wait to see you guys on the next panel.
Yeah, indeed. I would echo that as well. And thank you very much to the producers who have been online today. Bina joins us. She's been joining in the conversation and helping us out as part of the producer team today. Bina, of course, is also a panelist from time to time on Level Up. And Gabriel as well, lovely to see your contribution in the chat. So very well done. Great to have you as part of the Level Up community. And the same to everybody else who's joined in today. On behalf of all of our panelists, you do a great job online. You are the ones who set the questions. We didn't have any questions and there wouldn't be any show. So great job, very well done. And also on behalf of the audience, thank you, panelists. Now, if you'd like to connect with anybody on the panel, then please feel free to do so. You can look folks up on the APMG International website. Just look at our events, find today's episode, and there'll be a little link from each panelist's biography through to their LinkedIn account, and you can connect with them easily there. All right, very good. Now, over on our website, talking about that, you can also find, of course, answers to more than 2,100 previously asked questions and use those. It's totally free and it connects you with almost 300 experts from all over the world, different industries and disciplines and so on. Don't forget, you may also listen to the audio version of the show on your preferred podcast platform. Just as Falko was saying, sometimes the spoken word is great to listen to when you're out and about and doing different things. Coming up soon on Level Up on Monday at 8 a.m. UK time, it's our first discussion of the year on change management. It's going to be lively, so please do join us for that. I can also recommend an event midweek. It's a registered event, this one, so it does need you to sign up online. It's on Wednesday the 24th, and it's all about challenging your perspective on service management, IT service management best practice. And that's in collaboration with KPMG, almost the same acronym, over in Denmark. So great to have them on board as a partner. Friday, then a week today on the 26th at 2, we're going to be looking at starting your career as a project manager. So that'll be exciting. We look forward to seeing you all there. Don't forget, if you're watching on YouTube, please give the video a like and subscribe to the channel. It really does help us and, of course, others to find our content. So we appreciate it. Just write to us and we'll send you a personal summary of what's coming up and how you too can join us here on the panel and level up your career with APMG. Thanks very much, everybody. Have a great weekend and we'll see you next time.